Morning, boys and girls, and welcome. I'd like to thank you all for coming here today to hear me speak, and I really hope the story that I'm about to tell you will inspire you and motivate you to not only become readers for life, but also to achieve and pursue your goals. Before I continue, I'd like to also thank the management, the team, the staff here at Hartley Road Primary School, the librarian Soraya for reaching out to me, the principal, Mr. Ballum, for allowing me this time, and everyone here at Hartley Road Primary School. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Naushad Khan, and I am a proud ex-pupil of Hartley Road Primary School. And I say that because for 7 years of my life, this school to me was the best place to be between the hours of 7:30 to around, let's say, 4:30. So this place just was a place of happiness for me. I schooled here from grade 1 to grade 7, between the years of 2001 till 2007. Probably before most of you were even born, or all of you at the very least. So back then, there was no preschool. There was no grade R or anything like that. So I went straight from grade 1 into grade 7, and that was my whole schooling career. So before I go any further, I would like to tell you all that you should enjoy your time that you spend here at Hartley Road Primary School, because there will come a time where you will yearn and long for these days. And I know you hear that a lot, teachers, parents sometimes tell you that enjoy your time now while you're young, because one day you'll be old and you won't be able to enjoy it anymore. I was once sitting in the same position as all of you. At certain times, I didn't like to come to school because I didn't like the homework, I didn't like to do any schoolwork at all. Some of the teachers will even tell you that in certain subjects I was not the very best. However, in certain subjects such as English, I was the teacher's pet, I guess you could say. All the English teachers loved me from grade 1 right through to grade 7. But even as early as grade 8, when you leave the school at grade 7 and you go to high school, trust me when I'm telling you this, you will long for these days, because these will be the happiest days of your life. The time that you spend out there on the playground with your friends, you will long for that time. And when you go to high school, the work gets only harder from there. So the time that you're getting now in grade 4, you should enjoy it, because you'll never get a time like this again in your life. Coming back to my story, I never went to any preschool. Like I said, there was no preschool here at Hartley Road Primary during my period when I was here. So I was homeschooled, and then I went straight into grade 1 from there. However, my grade 1 teacher, Miss S. Nanan, she no longer works here, but she used to work here during that time that I was around. She really was surprised that a child who did not go to any formal preschooling prior to coming to grade 1 was so bright, especially when it came to English, when it came to following rules, behavior patterns, across the board. She called me a model student because she wanted all the students to model after me. Something that I wasn't too proud. I'm not bragging about it, because the other children really didn't like that I was the favorite. But that's just something to show you that even though I didn't attend preschool, I still came to school, and I was a model student from grade 1. Like I said, I wasn't the best at many subjects, one of them being mathematics, which I know some of you find extremely difficult as a subject, but I was in love with the English language. So English class was my absolute favorite. I always scored, I'd say, in percentages above 80. I never ever got anything below 80. And I'm not saying that as a brag, I'm saying that to give you guys some backstory. So how does a child who doesn't go to preschool come into grade 1 and is already so bright and ahead of the rest of his class, or at least on par with them? Because at the age of 5 years old, I was in the Musgrave Library. The Musgrave Library at the time used to be in the Musgrave Center, and now it is in Glenwood Village, not far from Hartley Road Primary School. It's in the same center as the spa is now. So I was, at the age of 5, I'm already in the library, and my parents were gracious enough to take me to the library and sign me up for a library card. But not only that, they signed up for library cards for each of themselves as well. So I used to go to the library on a weekly basis with both my library card, my mother's library card, and my father's library card. Now, on a single library card at the Musgrave Library, and I believe even at the Asheville Library, these are the closest libraries in the area right now. Aside from, of course, you guys are so privileged that you actually have a library within the school. So I'd like to encourage all of you to take the advantage of the library that's in your school right now, because the story that I'm about to tell you just shows you how important reading is. So I used to go to the library at the age of 5 years old. Now, on a single library card, you can borrow up to 8 books, and you can borrow them for up to 2 weeks. However, I was so into reading, and I loved reading so much that I used to take all 3 library cards and borrow up to 24 books a week. And I didn't need 2 weeks. Within 1 week, that includes me coming to school, doing my homework, within 1 week, all 24 books were read and ready to be returned to the library. I used to return them to the library only to come out of the library with another 24 books, which I would also take just another week to read. I was just so much into reading, because when you read, when it comes to a non-fiction book, there is so much of valuable knowledge that you can gain from reading a non-fiction book. And you would be surprised. Sometimes you wonder, how is it when you're sitting in a classroom and the teacher asks you a question? Why is she asking you a question instead of giving you the information? She wants to know, do you know the answer? Have you been reading? Do you leave school at the end of the day and just put your books aside? Or do you carry on reading them? Do you go to the library? Do you read regularly? So when a teacher is asking you a question and asking you, hands up if anybody knows the answer, she's really doing that because she wants to know who is a reader, who is really taking the time out to actually go to a library. You guys, like I said, have a library right here. Who's taking time to go to the library, pick out any book, whatever book it may be. It doesn't matter if it's a fiction book or a non-fiction, at least you're reading. Fiction books also improve your vocabulary. So right now you guys are at grade 4. By the time you come to grade 7, your vocabulary will increase. However, by reading, you can take leaps and bounds in increasing your vocabulary. So I'm not sure if Hartley Road Primary still uses the saying, but when I was in here, they used to have a saying that they were a quantum leap in education and excellence. That is taking a quantum leap, is by going to the library and reading a book. You increase your vocabulary. Whether it be a fiction or a non-fiction book, you're increasing your vocabulary. So that's one of the reasons why I encourage all of you to take the advantage. You have a library right here in the school. Pick out books and read them. And when you're reading fiction books as well, you're taken into another world. For example, I wrote a book called Race Champ. It's basically a story of a guy named Jason Woods who is passionate about being a pro racer. So he goes to the very place he knows where to start, that's called the Oval Tar, where many racers get their start. And along the way, he meets a lot of friends, and he also encounters a lot of foes. But, along the way, he comes up the ranks in the racing, at the Oval Tar racing, and he eventually achieves his goal of starting a career in the world of pro racing. And I'm talking about legal racing, not the illegal racing you might see on Brickfield Road or down there by Macro on a Saturday or Sunday night. You'll hear the cars just racing down the road. But I'm talking about legal racing on a circuit, like Kailami is a legal racing track, quite a few around the country. So that's the story of Race Champ. Many of you, I'm sure, have been to the library, you've borrowed the book, you've read it. I'm pretty sure most of you have enjoyed it. If you haven't, I don't know why you haven't already, it's right here in the library. Go onto the library, ask for Race Champ, it's that book right there, you see the color right there. So you ask for that book, read it, enjoy it, your vocabulary will increase, you'll be taken into another world, and trust me when I'm telling you, you will enjoy yourself. And even though it's a fiction book, there's a lot of knowledge that you can actually gain from reading that book as well. So I encourage you all to go to the library, get that book. And so, like coming back to my story, right? I used to borrow up to 24 books a week. and read and returned, leaving the library with yet another 24 set of books reading. And I read so much and so much. But the time I got to grade 1, I was starting to write my own stories because my mind would just start conjuring up ideas of its own. So I actually can remember the very first story I wrote. Keep in mind, I was a 6-year-old at the time, so I wrote a story about talking dinosaurs. Very, very fictional, obviously. Where would you get talking dinosaurs? So, and then I remember a story I wrote called The Voyage to Space. It was about a group of kids my age, at the time I was 7, a group of kids going on a voyage to space. Where in reality would you see a group of kids going to space at the age of 7? When you need astronauts to go to classes, to go through training, rigorous training, to even be able to step on a rocket and go into space. But the point I'm trying to make is, even though it's fictional, even though you know it's not real, you're reading the book, you're taken into another world. Sometimes you'll come across words in a book and you won't even know how to pronounce it. And that's where dictionaries come in, that's where your parents, teachers come in. You can easily go up to any older person and ask them, how do you pronounce this word? They'll tell you how to pronounce it. If you don't know the meaning, ask them, or go to a dictionary. I'm sure there's a dictionary here at the Hartley Road Primary School library. You can grab one, find out what the meaning of the word is, and then carry on reading. And your vocabulary will increase, like I said. And trust me when I tell you, when your vocabulary increases, your English teachers will love you so much more. So that's one advantage, I guess, of reading. And like I said, non-fiction books, you get a lot of valuable information, so it's also important to read fiction books as well. So I was writing stories from the age of 6 years old. When I got to 10 years old, I had already collated a box full of books that I had written. Stories on scrap pieces of paper, exam pads. Sometimes at the end of the school year, I'd have leftover pages inside of my old textbooks. Now I'm telling you this, you guys, this, I don't advise you doing this, but I used to tear out pages from my school book at the end of the school year when there was obviously I couldn't use the book anymore, and I would just start writing stories on them. So I had a box full at home. And when I say a box, like a box probably half the size of this table right here and about half the length, half the height of it. So that's how big of a box I used to have, just stories written by myself. At 10 years old, I surprised everybody when I entered a competition. I think it was a Nestle writing story competition, and I won. I came out in first place. And I also was at the same time writing a Western novel. Now, for a 10-year-old child to be writing a Western novel, that is something unheard of. If you don't know what a Western novel is, basically the story of cowboys, horses, you know, the old Western days, back in Texas, you know, duels in the middle of the street, where the guys used to get ready with their guns like this and get ready to duel. So that is Westerns. So at 10 years old, I'm writing it. Everybody's shocked. Some people read it. They're surprised that a 10-year-old had written a story. Because there were some words in there that a 10-year-old shouldn't be able to use. Those are words you'd probably be able to use when you're maybe 12, 13 years old. But I was writing it. And then I'd say I kept on writing right through, even into my high school years. My first year in high school was probably my worst year because I missed Hartley Road Primary School, to be honest with you. My high school was great. I enjoyed my high school, but not as much as I enjoyed my time at Hartley Road Primary School. So I'd say at the age of 17, it was the December 2011 holidays, is when I came up with the idea of Race Champ. And I spent the entire school holidays just writing the story. Initially, it was a story that was from start to finish, a simple, straightforward plot. And then obviously you add in your action scenes, your dialogues, all that stuff, extends it to be a large book. However, when I completed writing this book, I realized, okay, it's way too big. I need to split it up into 3 parts, which I did. And the next year, I completed my matric. Then I started working. I didn't go to any college or university, mainly because for me personally, there wasn't anything that interested me at college or university. For some of you, I would advise you that you should probably take the opportunity when you're given it to go to college and university. Some of you maybe you have ideas of what you want to be, maybe it may changes later on, or maybe you don't have any idea right now, but by the time you come to high school, by grade 11 latest, you should know what it is you want to pursue in your life. So whether you want to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever it is you want to be in life, I would advise you take the advantage and go to university and college and study and get your qualifications. And trust me, life will be so much easier for you from that point on. So I didn't go to any university college because I already knew what I wanted to be. I just needed to figure out the route map to get there. So the first step was obviously publishing my book, because I always wanted to be a writer. From a young age, everyone knew that Naushad Khan, that boy in class, yes, he loves it, writing, he wants to be a writer. So I pursued trying to get published. So at the time I was working, and like I said, I wrote Race Champ on scrap pieces of paper. So I obviously had to get it typed out, because no publisher is going to accept a book that's not typed out, especially in this day and age. Your technology is so rife and around you that everyone has access to a mobile phone, everyone has access to a laptop. I'm not sure, I know most of you are 10 years old or 11, I'm not sure if you have mobile phones yet, but I'm sure you will at some point in your life. My mobile phone I first had when I started working, so I was like 19, 20 years old when I had my first mobile. I had to save up and buy a phone. And on that very phone is where I typed out Race Champ. I didn't use a laptop, I didn't use a computer. Every day after work, I would put my phone down in front of me, and keypads on your phone are very small, so I'd be like this, typing my story. I'd have the story next to me like this, and I'd be typing it like this. So I typed it out all on my phone, saved it, and nowadays I saved it up to the cloud. I'm sure many of you know what that is. It's a backup saving for all your documents so it never gets lost. So that's how I saved Race Champ, and it took me 8 long years to get published. It was a very long and arduous journey, because when you're new to the publishing world, you're a new author, nobody wants to work with you. And this is something that you should all take into account. When you go into the real world, remember, the world doesn't owe you anything. If anything, you have to do your utmost best. You have to keep trying, work hard, and never give up. And that's one of the morals of the story in Race Champ, is that you should never give up. Because at one point in the story, and I feel like in many ways, Race Champ reflects my story. Because there was one point in the story where Jason Woods is put into a position where he has to make a choice, whether to give up on his dreams or to keep pushing forward. And with the support of his friends, and he had to look deep into himself, because at the end of the day, your friends are only going to be there for so long. Some of you have friends right now. When you're 20, 21 years old, you may not even know them. Maybe you're lucky enough to still keep in touch with some of them, but once you go to high school, all of you will be splitting in different schools, going your different ways. Some of you may keep in touch, some of you may be going to the same schools. After high school, everybody again goes to separate ways. So the world gets very much more diluted when you go further and further apart into your story. So never give up on your goals. He was given a choice, just like I was given a choice. At one point I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. Let me just put my pen down. But then I sat down and I prayed. I prayed to God and I said, give me a sign, give me a direction. And it wasn't long after that. It took a good couple of months, but it wasn't long after that until I found my sign. And I finally got published after 8 years, because for 8 long years I had typed out the book, I had it ready, I was pursuing publishers, I went to the Publishers Catalog of South Africa, ran through all different publishers, I encountered many different kinds of people. You get a lot of different kinds of people in this world, boys and girls. You're going to encounter a lot of different kinds of people. There was even a publisher who tried to string me along for almost 4 years with no result in sight. And I was still pursuing other publishers at the same time. And like I said, when you're new into this world, nobody wants to work with you. But thankfully, after praying and going down on the mat and reading every single day, I finally got my sign, and I finally ended up getting published. Someone picked me up and said, okay, we're going to publish you. And that was like my praise being answered. I was overjoyed at that sight. And it took a good couple of months, because when I finally got the call saying, Naushad Khan, author of Race Champ, we're going to publish you, it happened around January of 2020. Now keep in mind, I've been pursuing publishers since December of 2012 when I started working. I went straight out of school. The very next week after finishing my matric exams, I was already in the working world, already starting from the bottom to work my way up to the top. And so from December 2012 till January 2020, I kept pursuing it. I did not give up. I was working, yes, but I had a goal of getting published. So January 2020, I got the call, the ball started rolling. Like, I was excited. Okay, here's the cover design looks great, provide us with a picture, provide us with a summary, here's your text, have a look at it. And just as it looked like I was about to take off, just as we were about to get to the printing stage, here the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, comes on the TV screen one night and says, we're entering lockdown level 5 for 21 days, which ended up becoming 5 weeks. And my whole world came crashing down. I was like, I've waited so long for this, only for it to crash down beside me. And I had to wait again. I had to sit on the sidelines at home because we couldn't work. We couldn't go to work. I had to wait at home for 3 months in, I'd say, June, July 2020, when the world slowly started opening up essential services or other businesses again. We finally moved into the printing stage, and it taught me something, that patience is a virtue. I know you see some of this in your books that you read. I know when I was in madrasa here at the Hartley Road Primary School, one of the hadiths that was read was that patience is a virtue. And it is so true, because here I was at the precipice, at the very cusp of getting published, only for me to find out that we're going into lockdown, and again my dreams are being stalled. But I didn't let that stop me. I persevered. I had faith. I had faith in God. I prayed every day, and my doors opened up again, and I was getting my book printed. And yeah, in September of 2020, my book officially was published. And then, I'd say November 7th, 2020, was a very proud day in my life, because after, I'd say maybe 8 years, longer than that, because I'd say maybe 12 years or 13 years later, I walked back into Hartley Road Primary School, into this very hall where I'm standing before you today. I was up on that stage with a table in front of me, a banner up, another banner against the wall, and a lot of guests, family, friends, work colleagues, bookstores, publishers, media outlets. I'm talking like your weekly gazettes, your Rising Sun. All of them were here. Sound people put up speakers for me around the hall. I sat up on that stage with a publishing company, and I had my very first official book launch of that book right there, Race Champ. And it was like coming full circle. It was like all of my hard work, my perseverance, never giving up on my dreams, had finally come true. For me to be a boy who sat in the school for 7 years writing books in free periods and going home writing books, bringing them to school, lending them to my friends for them to read, and then giving back to me, and then saying, wow, Naushad, you have such a wild imagination. For me to walk back into the school all those years later with a properly published book, that was a moment I will never ever forget. That was the 7th of November 2020. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And the shirt that I'm wearing for you guys today actually was the shirt that I wore when I took my picture. I had a photo shoot with the Weekly Gazette that week, and I was wearing this very same shirt, so I thought it would be, you know, a nice touch to actually wear the same shirt in which I had my very first photo shoot for that book, Race Champ. And the very same week, I handed over 3 copies of my book, Race Champ, to Mr. Ballum, the principal of Hartley Road Primary School, 2 of which are in the library, and of course, I gave him a signed complimentary copy, because I know Mr. Ballum all the way back 2001 when I walked into the school for the first time, so I really wanted to give him a gift. And he was one of those who always encouraged me, never stop writing. 3 teachers, I'd say, 3 teachers actually taught me to never give up. And I'd like to mention them here because they were the ones who really inspired me to carry on writing. And they were the ones who told my parents, don't let him stop. Don't stop him from writing. If he wants to write, let him write. As long as he does his homework, we ain't got no problem. So the 3 teachers I'd like to thank was my grade 1 teacher, Mrs. Nanan, who I think she's retired. I'm not sure if she still works here anymore. But she really was the first inspiration. She figured out that I was such a bright kid at such a young age, and she was the first one who picked up that I write stories. The second person would be my grade 3 teacher, Mrs. Z. Haffaji, a real true inspiration for ensuring that I keep on writing. And she actually was the one who told me, she actually informed my mother, don't stop him from writing. As long as he does his schoolwork and he improves his grades in mathematics, let him keep writing. So She was a true inspiration. She used to even let me, at the end of the day, I mean, like at the last period of the day when everyone's tired, ready to go home, she would let me come up to the front of the classroom and read some of my stories out to the class. And they were always attentive, always inspired by the stories that I, wanted to read out to them. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the principal of Hartley Road Primary School, Mr. Bellum. He took me for quite a few classes when I was in grade 7. So he also was a huge inspiration. He always encouraged me to keep on writing, to keep pushing forward, to keep, just don't stop writing. He always asked me, and I remember during the 2009 elections when my parents came here with me to the school to register for voting, he was actually in the room. And he asked me, so Naushad, are you still writing? I said, gee, Mr. Bellum, I'm still writing. He said, good, keep it up. So he always knew I was a writer, and for him to allow me to have my book launch at this hall when he was the principal of the school in 2020, and I think he's still the principal now, is such a gracious moment that someone who knows me from the age of 6 years old is allowing me to have a book launch at the school. And that's why I gave him a complimentary copy, and that's why I have 2 copies of the book here at the library. Like I said, boys and girls, grab a copy. It's in the library. And who knows, maybe if, like I said, there's only 2 copies, if 2 of you borrow a book at the same time and somebody else wants to read it, maybe the school will order more, and I will put more books into the school. And yeah, so coming back to my story, so I had my book launch, and then in late 2020, I was so popular at this point. I was in newspapers, I was on YouTube, I'm all over social media. Everyone knows Naushad Khan. And I had a little small side business that I was running called multi-marketing. I was running it since, I'd say, 2015, more as an informal business, but in 2020, when lockdown happened, I decided to formalize it. So I self-taught myself how to design websites, design logos. So nobody taught me this. I didn't go to any university or college. I taught myself how to design logos and websites. And I used to do it for different businesses. And now that I was a published author, I now knew the process from start to finish on how to get published. And I was in newspapers everywhere. Everybody wanted to work with me. One of them was an author who himself was waiting since he was 12 years old writing a book and approached me. His name was Mohammed Zahir. He worked at the Al Baraka Bank. He said, I saw you in the newspaper. Can you help me get published? I had never thought about this ever in my life. When I was, I'd say, in grade 4, actually, besides being a writer, I also wanted to be an entrepreneur. Those who don't know, an entrepreneur is someone who identifies something in the community, a problem that can be solved, and he is the one who's willing to take a risk in order to solve that problem. So I decided to take a risk. I said, okay, Mohammed Zahir, let me see how I can help you. He sent me his book. I edited it. I did the layout and cover. There's the book right there. It's called The Map to Algiers by Mohammed Zahir. I did the whole editing, the layout, the cover design, everything for him, and we got it printed, and he was published by February 14, 2021, which many of you know 14 February is a very popular date out there. I personally feel it's very commercialized and unnecessary because every day should be the 14th of February 2021. I don't want to say it out loud. You all know what I'm talking about. So that is, and on that very same day, it was 1 year to the day, because on the 14th of February 2020, I officially registered Multi-Marketing as an official company. So 1 year later, I published my very first author in Mohammed Zahir. I did a book launch for him. We had, just recently, this past Saturday, I was at Exclusive Books at Gateway Mall, where I was doing a book signing session for him. And this coming Saturday, I'll also be at Exclusive Books in Gateway Mall, promoting the other book that you see there called William by Kim Bagshaw. As you can see, it is quite a thick book. It's 612 pages long. Took me 5 long months to edit and proofread this book. And it was a long journey, but thankfully, in 5 months, it was published, ready to go out there into the world. And again, I did a book launch for her at the David Landau Hall. We had newspaper articles, coverage, all of that stuff. Because we at Multi-Marketing Publishing, we do everything from the editing and the proofreading right through to national bookstore distribution, which is why we're doing book signings now at bookstores, is because obviously now their books are in the bookstores, so the next logical step is to have people come through, grab a copy, and get it signed by the author while they're there. I mean, why not? So that was me foraying into publishing and helping other authors. And not only in Durban, boys and girls, I have now, can proudly say that over the last 1 year, I have published authors in Cape Town, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Turkey, Malaysia, and there's an author coming up from Australia as well. She's got a best-selling book on Amazon at the moment, so we're currently working on that to get that published as well. So I am standing before you today. I have sat where you're sitting as an ex-pupil of Hartley Road Primary School. I used to wear, well, the same uniform that you guys are wearing, well, the boys, not the ladies, obviously. I'm wearing the same uniform that the boys used to wear back then. It's the same uniform I used to wear. So for me to stand before you today as a successful published author, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and someone who has many more plans coming up over the horizon, it is a moment to really reflect, because one day, you are all sitting here at grade 4 level. One day you could be sitting up or standing up here at this podium speaking to another generation of grade 4 learners who will be inspired by your story, because at the end of the day, you are the author of your own story. Everyone has a book. It may not be a physical book like these, but it is in your mind's a book, and you need to be the author of your book. You need to push yourself, drive yourself towards your goals. So whether you know what you want to do for the rest of your life, like I said at grade 4, I already knew I wanted to be a published author and an entrepreneur. And I'm not trying to brag, but I'm standing up here today and say to you all that I have achieved and I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish when I was in grade 4. There are things that I said to myself when I was in grade 8 and 9 that I still want to accomplish, and I'm going to accomplish them, because your mind has to arrive at your destination before you do. There's a motto that I love to use. It's all over my social medias. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. There's a motto you'll see on every single profile of mine, and that is believe and achieve. It is something I've lived my life by since I was in primary school. It's a saying that I like to think I came up with, because nobody told me this. I just said to myself, if I believe, surely I can achieve. It's something I said to myself when I started working. It is something I said to myself when I was trying to get myself published and I almost gave up. It is something that I uttered in the school, up on that stage on the 7th of November 2020 at my official very first book launch. And that is believe and achieve. Belief comes in two parts. Number one, you have to believe in Allah. You have to believe in God first, because without Him, you are nothing. Nobody here can say that he is here without Allah's will. And the second part of belief is belief in yourself. You have to believe that you can achieve whatever it is you want to accomplish in your life. Because look at me. I was at a point where I was like, I'm never going to get published. I was at one point saying, I don't know how to publish. How would I be able to do that? That's not something that I can do. However, I now know how to publish. I have published in the last year 6 whole books, ranging from 612 pages, some are even 80 pages long. So I am someone who can say to you today that I have believed. I believed I could, and I achieved. And going forward with all the goals I want to achieve, I'm going to believe it first and then achieve it. Like I said, your mind has to arrive at your destination before you do. You have to believe and achieve. Now, how can you incorporate reading in your everyday life? Like I said, I used to go to the library, and you guys have a library right here that you can access at any time. But how can you incorporate reading in your life? I mean, you guys have a long day. Some of you even go to madrasa after school. You have to go home. You have to do school homework. You have to do madrasa homework. In the mornings, you're rushing to go to school. How are you going to incorporate reading into your life? Let me tell you how. There's 2 things you can do. First of all, borrow a book from the library. Whatever book it may be. You can take it home with you. On your bedside table where you sleep, have a session where you read 2 pages in the morning, just to get your mind working. And then in the evening before you sleep, pick up a book, read a few pages as well. Your mind gets sharper, your think will increase, and you will gain better understanding, more vocabulary, like I said in the beginning, and you will become a success in your life. Because the saying is true, readers are leaders. So keep reading, boys and girls, and trust me, you will become leaders one day. I'd like to thank you all for giving me this time to speak to you this morning, and Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.